Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the beneficent, who appeared among us, the black man and black woman here in America, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And of course, in the name of his servant and messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. I greet our viewers, our listeners, in the greeting words of peace and paradise in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. Once again, I say that to you. Brothers and sisters, first of all, thank you for taking this time to view and to listen to what we have to say. My name is Brother, and I always emphasize that because I am your brother. Brother Minister Abdul Haqq Muhammad. I'm a member of the Nation of Islam, established by the one who met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Master Farad Muhammad, in 1931. This is our nation, and this nation includes every black man and woman here in America. And we thank you once again for joining us this afternoon, or wherever you're at, whatever time zone you are in, whatever time zone that you are in, to listen to us and view what we're saying. This lecture, which is called our Sunday Lectures, sponsored and brought to you by Muhammad's Temple of Islam United, a group of brothers and sisters that are dedicated and committed to spreading the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. But before I continue with what I have to say this afternoon, I'd like for you to join me in the Muslim opening prayer. We pray in this manner. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praises are due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful Master of this day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, and thee alone do we beseech for aid. Guide us along the right path, along the path of those that thou hast bestowed favors, but not along those whose wrath is brought down, nor along those who go astray after they've heard thy teachings. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who appeared among us in the person of Master W.D. Farad Muhammad, and I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is his true apostle and messenger. Ameen. Brothers and sisters, once again, I thank you for joining us, and we just want to impart upon you a few words from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we call these the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And you may say, well, why don't you just call it Islam? It is Islam, but these teachings were designed for me and you, the black man and woman of America. These teachings were designed for us to take us out of the mud of civilization, stand us up, clean us up, and make us ready and dignified to face the world that we were so opposed to, and that was opposed to us. We do believe that in 1931 that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad indeed met with God in person, a man. And you might say, well, we thought God was a spirit. We believe that God is something untouched, unseen. But see, that is what was taught to you by your slave master or our slave masters once we were brought to America in chains. And we were taught that God was a spirit, God was a spook, unseen, untouched, and that we wouldn't see that God until we died. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, no, God was always a man. He was always a human being. But we were taught other than that. But that's not my subject today. My subject is the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Before I get into that, brothers and sisters, those of you who are listening to me, you see in the background, How to Eat to Live, from God in Person, Master Farad Muhammad, by Elijah Muhammad, the Messenger of Allah. And the reason why I like to touch on this here, because our people are dying by the thousands, not so much because we are not a healthy people, or I should say that we weren't born a healthy people, but because of the foods and the lifestyle that we are living. You know, there's a saying in the black community that black don't crack. Well, brothers and sisters, we might be cracking now because of the way that we are living, the foods that we are eating, the drugs and everything else. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came to us, was raised among us, not only to teach us certain things about Islam and God and the devil, but he came to let us know that you can live a long, healthy life by following some basic dietary laws. Just recently, in the community that I live in here in New York City, in a small community, 3 young men, 2 of them in their early 60s and 1 of them in their late 50s, died within a span of a month. These men were sick, they were participating in drug use, they were eating the wrong food, and not that they were bad individuals, but they didn't understand or didn't know what to do to preserve their life. There's no reason why men in 60 years old, 50 years old, dying of heart attacks, kidney failure, diabetes, heart attacks, all these kind of ailments, that we can live healthy, that we can live long. Jesus said, I come to give you life. Some of you that are Christians, you can read that in the Bible. Jesus said, I come to give you life and give it to you abundance or in abundance. That doesn't mean just spiritual life. That means longevity, a healthy life, a vibrant life, to keep you alive, to keep you healthy. Let me just read something, and I just wanted to say, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings are very deep. They're very profound, but they're very simple and pragmatic. You heard what I said? They're very deep in its essence. His teachings are very, very deep, very profound, but very simple that even the average man and woman could understand. But let me say what he said in his great book, that's part 1 and 2, called How to Eat to Live. Just listen to me. He said, we cannot live a long time if we are laden our bodies with fats to burden our hearts and pumping the blood, all of this fat. We cannot eat all of this grease. Some of you go to the Chinese restaurant. You go to these fast food places. Much of that is grease. Grease clogs your arteries. And he says that you cannot laden your body with these kind of things, that disallows your blood to pump the necessary fluids to your heart. He said it shortens the time of our heartbeat, and the fat person is, in many instances, more likely to attract sicknesses and disease. Why are we healthier in our lives prolonged by eating as God has taught us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever? So it's very simple. Eat the right foods. Eat at the right time. A lot of these many of the young men that I just mentioned that died, a lot of them were using drugs too. And you can't put foreign elements into your body. You know the first time whenever you smoked, you noticed that you coughed when you took a drag of that cigarette? You know what your body was telling you? The body is a magnificent machine. Your body was telling you when you coughed that this is something foreign. It's rejecting the smoke or the nicotine that's going into your body. That's why you cough. You remember the first time you took a drink? You start, that is your body rejecting it. Because the body is a magnificent, God gave us a body that is the temple. It's a very magnificent, what you call a majestic figure. All in its internal parts. And when you do those things, your body is trying to reject. But after a while, once you continue to do it, you get an immune effect in your body. And you get used to it. So you no longer cough because your body is used to it going in there. So let us try to eat, brothers and sisters, so we can have a long and healthy life. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us Islam, which means peace. He said that we are all Muslims. Islam means peace. And those who accept Islam enter into peace. That's what he taught us, but his teachings were directly designed to uplift the black man and woman here in America because we had a different experience than any other people. When they brought us here 400 years ago on the ships coming from Africa to America, they took our language. They took our God. They took our religion. They took our culture, our mores, and our folkways, and left us as an empty people, almost on the level of animals. Mr. Muhammad said the worst thing that ever happened to the black man and woman here in America when they took all of those things from us, because we knew not what to do, and we knew not and where not to go. He taught us three basic things, as I said earlier. His teachings are deep, they're profound, but they're very practical. They're very simple. They're very applicable in your everyday life. The first thing he taught us was the knowledge of self, who we are. Because many of us, our parents and great-grandparents called themselves Negroes. They didn't know who they were. They thought they will forever be perpetual slaves to the white man, even though they yearned to be free. But they had captured our minds to the point where we didn't know where our origins, where we came from, what was our origins in the world. So he said, the black man and woman, you are the first in the sun. You are the original people of the earth. You built civilization. You built the great pyramids that you see in Egypt. You built Timbuktu that is found in West Africa. You built all of these magnificent things. You were the first to give medicine and science to the world and mathematics. He said, you are the Asiatic black men and women. You are the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, and the God of the universe. That is who we are. I don't have time today to go into all the details of that which he taught us about who we were, but just to give you a taste. And you go study on your own. That's your homework. Find out who you are. Find out where you came from. Find out, don't stop in in the time that we were enslaved. Go beyond that. We live in a time now that you have great technology. You have Google. You have all of these technical research mechanisms. You can find things now where many of us that grew up, we didn't have that access. Then he taught us the knowledge of God. We taught God was in the sky somewhere. that God was a mystery, and that we would not see or talk to God or meet God until we die. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, God is, God was, is, and will forever be a man, a human being. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, it talks about, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word became flesh. That simple statement in the Bible tells you the Word became flesh. We are flesh and bones. So the very thought, the very idea of the existence of God came from the beginning of time that is immeasurable. You cannot measure that time of the beginning of God. And that idea of God became flesh. And we are the direct descendants of the God that created the heavens and the earth. We're just an extension. So once you have the knowledge of self, then you have the knowledge of God. And when you have the knowledge of God, you have the knowledge of self. Then he taught us the knowledge of the devil. We were taught, of course, I know I was, that the devil was under the ground, down in the earth, in some fiery furnace, and that if we were bad or if we were evil, and when we died, we would go down to hell, and we would burn forever. That is untrue. There's no devil in the ground wearing red tights and with horns and a pitchfork. That's not true. That's a fantasy. That's a fairy tale. He said that if you look at the history of the white man, if you look what he has done on the earth, all of his history, all of his behavior points to the fact that he's a devil. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not making fun at the white man. He was not mocking him. He was using the language of Scripture. If you look throughout the Scriptures of both the Bible and the Holy Quran, it talks about evil. It talks about Satan. It talks about Shaitan, Iblis. It talks about all kind of evil characteristics. And all of that has been displayed in the history and the behavior of white people. He said, the white man is the devil. Ooh, that shocked everybody. Oh, the white man, why do you want to say that? Well, the prophets and messengers always called people and individuals devils, vipers. So those are three basic, fundamental teachings from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The knowledge of God, the knowledge of self, and the knowledge of the devil. Now you go study those things. So to have knowledge, you must have a thorough knowledge of yourself. And that only comes through, brothers and sisters, through study. You must study. If someone comes to you and tells you something, you must analyze that. You must go check it out. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad always taught us, he said, whatever I teach, he said, question me. Check it out. Turn it over. Look it up and down, to and fro, and find out if I'm telling the truth or if I'm telling a lie. He said the worst thing that has happened to us as a people, as I said earlier, the white man took the knowledge of self from us, took our language, our culture, our God, our religion, all the things that make people a whole people, he took from us. But praises be to Allah. We had a God in the name of W.D. Farad Muhammad, the King, and gave us all the things that were taken from us, and raised up among us a messenger by the name of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad would give us words from scriptures, very simple, fundamental words. In the book of Ezekiel, he talked about us looking at that story of Ezekiel in the dry bones in the valley. He said these bones were disconnected. They were dry. They were detached from each other. Now that story, that picture that's being painted in the book of Ezekiel is just not talking about some bones. It's talking about some people. We were dry. When you don't have water, water represents life. When you're dry, you don't have life. So you look at our community. We don't have life here. We're just walking around, getting high, going different places, but we don't have life, and we don't have it where we're productive. It's almost like we're the living dead. We're just walking around aimlessly. So we were dry, without water, without substance. And these dry bones was disconnected from each other. And if you listen to black people, they always say, we don't have no unity. We're not together. Well, that's the picture of the dry bones. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, God commissioned the Son of Man to blow on those dry bones. What do you mean blow on them? Give them, it means that he blew some knowledge. He blew some wisdom and understanding on the dry bones to make them shatter and come together and wake it up. The scripture says, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And as long as we don't have not just regular knowledge, but knowledge that will uplift us and make us a whole people. So far, I hope everyone is all right. We're just moving along. We won't be long. We just want to give you some basic teachings from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I said earlier that he wasn't sent to us. He was raised from among us. And the reason why that's so important, brothers and sisters, is because he was from among us. He's a part of us. He spoke the same language. He understood everything about us. See, that is very important because when you raise someone from among yourself, that person knows you and you know that person. And God would not send someone outside of us to speak to black people because we wouldn't understand what they're saying. He's not going to send an Arab to us. He's not going to send someone from Thailand or from Vietnam. He's not going to send someone from Spain or Italy. He's going to send someone that can speak your language. Just like where I grew up at here in New York City, in a place called Coney Island. I know everybody here. They know me. Most of the people I know. So I'm not a foreigner to them. So whenever I speak, they can relate to what I'm saying because I know them and they know me. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings are deep. They're profound. But they're very simple and very pragmatic that the average man and woman could understand. You know, in the beginning, you know who the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was able to attract when he first began to get into his mission for the resurrection of the black man and woman of America? He got those black people that no one wanted. They called them the rejected and despised people, the criminals, the prostitutes, the hustlers, the pimps, the stick-up kids, the dope fiends, the winos. Because, see, those people that were from us, they didn't have no reservations about accepting his teaching because they had already been beaten down and, rejected by the greater society. Many of them brothers came from prison. Malcolm was one of them. Most of you praise Malcolm, but if you knew Malcolm before he became a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you probably wouldn't even want to be around him. He was a pimp. He was a hustler. He was a stick-up kid. He carried guns. He sold black women to white men and white women to black men. He sold drugs. Malcolm would kill you when he was in the streets. But once he got the teachings of the most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it reformed him. It changed his very life. And that's the ones that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad attracted. These people were the ones that were looking for change. And they had no problem. And he was a savior and a deliverer for them. Myself. I was a young man in the streets as a teenager. I probably would be in jail now or dead if it wasn't for Mr. Muhammad and his teachers that found me. There was a group of us, dozens of us that came. I was stealing. I was smoking weed. I went to jail. I was in a Brooklyn, New York jail for several months. But in my heart, I was looking for something. And there was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that gave me that chance to turn my life around. And as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad began to teach and his movement began to grow and develop, then many of our educated black brothers and sisters began to look at him in a different way and said, man, this man got something here. Because many of our people that are educated and they go to the white man's school, they are being taught by the white man. They're being educated by the white man. So their view of life, their perspective of life is from the white man's thinking. And they want to be in his society. But many of them, as they get higher and higher into the white man's social and economic system, they see a different picture. Okay? My brother-in-law, who came in the nation with me, he was a vice president of a bank, Bank of America. He said, listen, he told me, he said, the higher I got into that society, into that financial system, he said, the filthier it was. The debauchery and the lies and deceit. That's why in the lessons that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us, the question was asked of him by Master Farah Muhammad. Why does the white man keep us, black people, from his social equality? Because he doesn't want us to know how filthy and slimy and grimy he is in all his affairs. So as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teachings begin to take hold of the black communities throughout America, the educator of our people, he attracted a mathematician by the name of Lonnie X. Cross, who became Minister Lonnie Shabazz, a mathematician. He began to listen to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad only went to the 3rd grade, or barely finished the 4th grade. He almost got halfway in. But he was virtually uneducated in the white man's world. But here was a mathematician who began to listen to him. Then another brother by Brother Leo, who was a professional, developed dentist. He began to listen to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He became Abdul Salam out of Newark, New Jersey. And many, many men and women came up out of the universities and colleges, began to listen to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There was a black business organization called the National Negro Business Association in the 70s. They began to look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and they told him, they said, this man is doing what we were trying to do for over 100 years. What was different than what they were trying to do? These were black businessmen, engineers, technicians, teachers, all kinds of professionals. But here they were listening to what they considered an uneducated man, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. See, his teachings are deep. His teachings are profound, but they're very simple. The teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, whenever prophets and messengers are sent to people, when the prophets and messengers are sent, they are not to come just to judge and condemn the people that they are being taught, but they came to give them a simple message. And the message is usually accept the truth or reject it, accept the truth and die, or accept the truth and live, or reject the truth and die. Very simple. And then in between those two teachings, he gives you a method, a program, an idea on how to live based on the teachings of the truth that these prophets and messengers give to you. And it was no difference with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was told to deliver a simple, plain message to the black people of America. And he stayed among us and stayed with that message for 40 years. The basic teachings. He said, wake up, black man and woman. What do you mean wake up? When you get up in the morning, when you wake up, you're still kind of groggy. You're still half asleep and half woke. You're trying to collect yourself. So the teachings was to wake us up, jar us, motivate us. Just like you when you get up in the morning. Sometimes you sit on the side of the bed. Sometimes you don't want to get up, but you know that sun outside, or you have a purpose or responsibility, and you know you got to get up. So the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad penetrated us and made us wake up. And once you wake up, you know, you got a little sleep in your eye, you're slobbing half out of the side of your mouth, you know, you're a little ashy, your hair's all, you know, kind of matted. But what do? The next thing he said, clean up. So once you wake up, you go into the bathroom. You wash yourself up. You clean yourself. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we weren't fit to be recognized by the civilized society of the world. So he said, I purposely took my followers and made them clean up from their morals, clean up from the drugs and the alcohol, clean up from the negative behaviors that they were practicing all their life. So we cleaned up. Made us say you should wash at least twice a day. Be clean internally as well as externally. That's why the Muslims look so clean when you saw them. Everywhere I go, some people say to me, I say, you're a Muslim, aren't you? I said, how you know? He said, the way you look. You just look different. He told us when we walk, hold our head up. When we talk, speak up. When you talk to someone, look dead in their eye. Don't hold your head down. Because that's what the white man taught us during slavery. Hold your head down, nigga. No, but we hold our head up. Because we're proud and we're cleaning ourselves up. And then the next thing he said, after you wake up and clean up, he said, stand up. Take a position. Stop being afraid of taking a position. Take care of your family. Take a position in your community. Stand up for something. Stand up for righteousness and truth. Very simple. Wake up, stand up, and clean up. Now, once we wake up, we clean up and we stand up, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in his great iconic book, Message to the Black Man in America, he gave us a 12-point program to make us a better people. Very simple. Let me read. This comes from the chapter on program and position. He said, number one, separate yourselves from the slave master. Now, what does that mean? Separate. You already basically separated in different communities. If you go to any city, basically, there's a black community and there's a white community. And other ethnic groups might be in and around. But basically, we are already physically separated from the white man. So what does it mean? Separate yourself from the slave master. Well, first of all, who is the slave master? When we were brought here to America, there were 3 people that operated in the slave trade. There was a slave trader. That was the one that went to Africa, put us on the ships and brought us here and did the trading. That was a slave trader. Then there was a slave maker. Well, how do you make a slave? You teach him to hate himself. You teach him to be subjected to you. You teach him to respect you and love you and be afraid to do anything other than that, or anything that would make you feel that this slave is not yours. So they made us, they put us in camps, taught us that we should be submissive, put us on plantation, beat us, told us we were nothing, told us our black and dark skin was inferior. That's the slave maker. Taught you to disrespect your woman. That's the slave maker. He made you a slave. And if you got out of hand, they would beat you. And then they would take those rebellious slaves, they would take them and put them in the square, out in the open, and made all the other enslaved black brothers and sisters watch as they beat you and even kill you. That was the slave maker. And then the slave master. The slave master was the one that had all of these plantations of enslaved black men and women. And he worked you from sunup to sundown. Some of you worked in the house, some of us worked in the house, some of us worked in the fields. Some of us were sharecroppers. He was the master of our thinking. Him and his wife or his children, he was the master of everything that they did. My mother her grandparents were ex-slaves. Her great-grandparents was ex-slaves in North Carolina. And my mother picked cotton from the time she was about 12 years old till she was about 16. She said she hated it. She said her hands would be bleeding from picking cotton all day to almost sundown. And she said her grandfather, his father was a white man. He raped my great-grandmother and produced a son by the name of Alfonso Brooks. And he couldn't even play with his white half-brothers and sisters. They made him stay in the field. That's right. That's the history. And if some of you check your history, you might find the same thing. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, separate yourselves from the slave master. He meant, first of all, mentally. Separate your mind from what you've been taught all of these years and get a new mind. A mind that will make you do for self, do for your community, protect your family and your children, and make your community a cleaner and better place to live. Separate yourself from the slave master. Starting with your mind. Because you can be separate, but if you still have the mind of your slave master, well, you're still a slave. Number two, he said, pool your resources, education and qualifications for independence. We live in all of these communities throughout America, in Chicago, in Memphis, in New York City, in Boston, in Atlanta, Georgia. But we don't control the resources in our community. You look at all the trucks that come out throughout the community, they're owned and operated by white people who bring in the bread, the food, and the meats, and the produce. He said, control your own education. The schools that our children, in the inner cities, majority of the students in those schools are black. But we don't control what goes into the minds of our children. He said, qualify yourself for independence. Don't wait for the white man to do for you what you can do for yourself. That was a basic, fundamental, simple teachings that anyone, if you didn't say it was for black people, you would have to agree that every people would be able to relate to that. Then he says, stop forcing yourself in places you are not wanted. Stop trying to force yourself in white community. I feel so sorry for those black people. They run to those white communities. They leave their black community and they run to these white communities and then complain the way they're being treated by those white people. Well, you ran in their community. You're trying to live close to them. Go to your own community. Keep it safe. Clean it up. Participate. in some type of civic and organization. He said, 4, make your own neighborhood a decent place to live. Make it a decent place to live. You can't expect the white people to come into the hood and clean it up. This is where you live. I remember there was a young boy, I think I might have told this story before. I saw him, I had a barber shop and a bookstore, and the little boy came from the Chinese restaurant, and he ate about half of the food, and then he threw the rest right on the ground, right in front of the store. I said, come here, son. I said, why did you throw that on the floor? He said, because I ain't want no more. He had to be no more than about 7 or 8 years old. I said, this is our community. I said, this is where you live. He said, I don't live here. He said, I live upstairs in the projects in apartment 6C. He couldn't make the association with the fact that this was his community because he was never taught that. So he thought he lives in the apartment and that community had nothing to do with him. But when I got finished with him, he picked up that stuff that he threw on the floor, and I didn't force him. I didn't threaten him or anything. I just gave him some information, something simple, something deep from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said, rid yourself of lust of wine, drinks, and learn to love self and kind before loving others. We use drugs because we are so empty as a people. We think you can't have a good time. You can't enjoy life without snorting some coke, without smoking crack and lacing it with fentanyl. We just consume bottles of alcohol. Some of us get up in the morning and have Hennessy and a quart of beer. Do you know that stuff is really destroying your body? You can't do that year after year after year. Some of us smoke cigarettes. I heard cigarettes is like $15 a pack. Not only is cigarettes a very unhealthy habit, but it's a very expensive habit. I don't know how people smoke and pay $15 for a pack of cigarettes. He said, stop trying to love others before you love yourself. Love black people. Have an association with them. We don't trust each other because that came from white people teaching us not to trust your brother and sister. You should meet a person and base your relationship on them, how they treat you and how you treat them. He said, unite and create a future for yourself. We don't look to the future. We have a future. There are young brothers and sisters today don't think they're going to live beyond 25 years old because they have no value of life. The greatest gift that God has given us and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us is your life. You cherish this life. Not a big car, not a big home, not a pair of new Nike or Jordan sneakers, not diamond rings. Those are just things. But your life is the most precious item that you have. He said, build your own homes, schools, hospitals, and factories as other people do. I remember I went to Detroit one year. That was my first time it wasn't my first time in Detroit. I went to visit my daughter who lives in Detroit, and I was traveling on the highway and I kind of went off the wrong exit, and I went to this community, an Arab community. It's called Dearborn. I seen banks owned by Arabs. I seen restaurants. I saw cleaners. I saw barbershops. I saw beauty salons. Everything you can name, it was blacks. I was traveling black. I said, where am I? And this was a Arab community in Dearborn. They said this particular part of Dearborn, Michigan, they said is the largest concentration of Arabs in America and the largest community that is vibrant. We can do that. I remember I went to Atlanta. I went to Peachtree, the street where Martin Luther King's house is still there. It's like a landmark now. And I went up that block, and there were dozens of houses boarded up. There was no store. There was one little store on that block owned by some Koreans. I said, wait a minute. This is the block that Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, who we love and respect, lived on this block, his house, and the church was there. So we can do the same as I witnessed in Dearborn, Michigan. Do not seek to mix your blood through racial integration. I know love is love. If you fall in love with someone that's outside your race, I can understand that. But if you go purposely to seek this black sister that's been with us since we got off the ships, we're running to mix or to marry someone outside of our community. These are the women that stuck with us. Black man, black women, these are black men that came when we came here in ships, in the holds of ships. We have a common experience. And we should not seek to go outside of ourselves, because there is 40 million of us in Black America. And this is not to say you can't put no racist jacket on us or no racist reference to us. Love yourself before loving others, and people will respect you based on that. Stop buying expensive cars, fine clothes, shoes, before being able to live in a fine, decent home. You know what they say about black people? They say we buy what we want and we beg for what we need. You got brothers riding around in big Escalades, $90,000 cars, BMWs. And some of them don't even have a place to live. Sleeping on the couch with their grandmother. I was a parole officer for many years. Many of those guys were like that. They would come in, they would have $250, $300 sneakers, and didn't have a token or enough money to get on the train to go home. I used to have to give them Mr. Stewart. They used to say, Mr. Stewart, that's my slave name. Mr. Stewart, I need enough money to get back on the train to get back home. I said, wait a minute. I said, you got a pair of sneakers on, you got jewelry, you got gold teeth, gold fronts, and you don't have $2 to get on the train or the bus? No, sir. You see what I'm saying? That's backwards. Get yourself a place to live. Some of them brothers were sleeping on a couch and with their grandmother in a studio apartment. Some of our people go by and go to restaurants and do all of these extravagant things and don't even have a decent home to live in. He says, spend your money among yourselves. I live in a community about a couple of miles away. There's a Russian community, a Ukrainian community. It is, if you go there, you look like it is so vibrant. The businesses are opening up. They have everything. And you come to the community a few miles away where we black people and brothers, the Latino brothers and sisters, all we have is Chinese restaurants, liquor stores, and drugstores. And that's not an accident. You eat that Chinese food, it's full of grease, full of toxins, and then you go get you a bottle of Hennessy or some other alcohol or drugs, and once you get sick, you have to go to the drugstore to try to help with that your sickness. See how it works? So we have to begin to spend money with ourselves. I buy my paper towels, my toilet paper, and other products, even cleaning products, from black-owned businesses. Seek them out. I'm not saying you find a lot of them, but at least find one. Do you have a black bank that you put your money in? Why do you put it in Chase? Citibank, Bank of America. They very seldom put money into our community, and they build homes that you can't even go and live in. in certain communities here in America. You got churches. You got churches that put their money in these banks, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. And these same banks build communities and homes that those church members are not able to put their foot in that community. In fact, if they even are found there, they may call the cops on them. So he said, build an economic system among yourselves. They say that black people in America, we spend, what is their figure? $2.5 trillion every year in the American economic system or the financial system of America. We buy everything from hot sauce, potato chips, soft drinks, you name it. But we have enough money. The money that we have among us, 2.5 trillion. I think might be 4. I think it's 4, if I'm not mistaken. I could be corrected. There's some countries that don't even have that kind of money. That's a lot of money. We can end poverty, homelessness with that kind of money. We can employ all of our people with that type of money. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, these are just simple, they're deep, but very simple, practical teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And lastly, point number 12. He said, protect your women. Now, all the 11 points, but at the end in number 12, now what does protect your woman have to do with all of those things? Because the black woman is our first teacher. They are first nurse. They are the mothers of civilization. They are the ones that form and develop our children. So if you don't protect her, then anybody and everybody can come in and use, abuse, and co-opt your woman, and you will not be able to do anything about it. You cannot go anywhere in this world and see something like that happen. That's right. We have to protect our women. They are the field by which we produce a nation of children for the future and the hereafter. Protect her, respect her, and elevate her. These are the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You said, well, that don't sound like Islam. It is Islam. Islam is freedom, justice, and equality. Islam is truth. Islam are all the things that's going to make us a better people. When Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, when he came to them Arabs in Saudi Arabia over 1400 years ago, they were lovers of strong drink. They worshiped heaps of sand and worships of statues. They used to bury their women, their children, female children, in the ground when they were born because they thought that was a curse. They would sit around all day drinking strong drink like wine and all kind of substance. But when the Holy Quran made its way and the revelation came to them, it made them lovers of wisdom, and they began to stand up. And that is Islam. And he came to them with a very simple message, just like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has given to us. So as I conclude, brothers and sisters, all these points that I read are rooted from the essence of God that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he met in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. These were the things that made him inspired. So brothers and sisters, we ask that you, if you're still interested in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he's kind of strange to you because they're trying to wipe him out of history. You know, they're dealing with this critical race theory. and excluding a lot of the history books and narrative that's in the public school. They've been trying to get us to eliminate Mr. Muhammad from our way of thinking and our history. So it's important that you see this man of who he is. God sent him. God sent him, but see, he didn't send him for someone that you want to accept, that looked a certain way or talked a certain way. God looks into the heart of the man or the woman that he's sending, and he saw the heart of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said, "Well, this is the one that I'm giving this mission to come and resurrect the black man and woman of America." So, brothers and sisters, I thank you for listening. I hope that I did not in any way disrespect you in any way. You know, we are respectful people. You have the Muslim world right now are ending their fast of the Ramadan according to the lunar calendar, the Eid feast. We respect that. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us a Ramadan program for us as a people because we didn't come from that. He found it was necessary to give us a different teachings that would make us a better people. And whether it's the Passover or the Easter or any other observance, we respect them. But we want you to respect us when we make a decision from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So, brothers and sisters, I will close now, and you'll be given some information how to learn more about what we do and who we are, and how you can become also one to embrace Islam under the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So I leave you, as I came to you in the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master W.D. Farad Muhammad, and in the name of his messenger, the most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I close. Assalamu alaikum.
If you believe what you are taught today on Islam is true, and you would like to learn more, or you are ready to accept and reclaim your own, contact the Lost Foundation of Islam Muhammad's Temple United at 623-312-4352. Again, that's 623-312-4352. We thank you for joining us today, and we ask that you return next Sunday and invite your family and friends. We ask your support so that we may continue to get the truth out to our people. You may contribute by donating to our Cash App at $MT United, that's $MT United. May the peace and blessings of Allah be with you. Assalamu alaikum.